Any way to lose weight in a calorie surplus?
Not if that's so what I'll tell people is, all right, you take in food, the carbons that you take in, they have to go somewhere, right? And if you are not in a surplus, what you are saying is you are creating energy out of nothing. If that's the case, NASA needs to study you because we figured out how to not worry about fuel on long space flights, right? We have a perpetual motion machine. Again, a lot of this, the confusion becomes when you have, for example, metabolic adaptation.
Yeah.
So, people, they may think they're in a calorie deficit, but they're not, or they're overestimating how many calories they burn. And here's the other thing that people don't want to talk about because this gets down to the mirror, right? So there was a classic study, I think it was from 1992. And I think the title, I may butcher it, but it's Discrepancy Between Reported and Actual Calorie Intake in Obese Subjects. I want to say is the name of the study. And so what they did was they screened for people who said that they could not lose weight even though they were eating low calories. And the average calorie intake that was reported by participants was 1,200 calories a day. And so they measured a bunch of different stuff. They measured their lean mass, their fat mass, they measured their BMR, they measured their total daily energy expenditure. They found that their BMR was very average when it was based on their lean mass, right? And actually, if you look at obese people, they actually have a higher BMR and higher energy expenditure typically than lean people. But on average, it's because they have more lean mass, because when you have more mass to carry around, your body has to create more locomotive mass. But they told the subjects, we are going to monitor you and we will know if you're eating more than you say you are. The average in the study was they underreported their calorie intake by about 50%. And they overreported their physical activity by just under 50%.
Jeez.
Now, and some of the participants argued with the researchers about it, right? Here's where people miss the message. The message a lot of people take from that is, oh, see, they're lying. And that's a really hard thing to take to somebody, to be like, well, you're probably underreporting your calorie intake, or you're probably eating more than you think you are. That feels very, aggressive. And I don't think it's lying. I think that, one, people don't really understand portion sizes. If you've never had the experience of like weighing out your food, you will be shocked. Like, weigh out a serving of cereal or a serving of ice cream. Or if you want to be really depressed, weigh out a serving of peanut butter. Because the tablespoon that you're grabbing, I promise you, is probably 2 or 3 servings. And then, like, if the first time I weighed out ice cream, when I started weighing my food, I was like, this is a serving? It's like 2 bites, And so I don't think people have a really good understanding of serving sizes. And even, I'll remember, I'll never forget this, it was an Instagram DM. And this lady was saying that she was eating 1,600 calories a day and not losing weight. And we kind of, had a little back and forth, and we were talking. And I said, well, she's like, I am measuring my food. I'm like, how are you measuring it? She's like, I'm doing volume measurements. So she was doing cups, tablespoons, that sort of thing. I said, do me a favor. Do exactly what you've been doing, but weigh out each one. A day later, she came back and said, oh my God, I'm eating 2,700 calories a day. And so even dietitians underreport their caloric intake in studies by about 10%. And these are the experts, right? So you have on one side, people are eating more than they think they are. And then on the other side, they think they're being more active than they really are. But again, that's a hard conversation to have with people. And even as such, telling people, hey, you need to move more, eat less. Mechanistically, that's true. But that's like telling somebody, hey, if you want to save more money, just earn more and spend less.
With all of this, I was adding up all these discrepancies, right? Discrepancies as in like you're weighing it wrong, the label's got 20% wrong. And then my head went back to your budgeting analogy. As an entrepreneur and as a CEO, if my accounting was 20% off, I'm dead. Yeah. But then if it's 95% off in the till, like how much money we're getting into the till, and then I'm using a cup instead of a scale, so that's, 30% off as well. No wonder, the business would go bust.
Right.
It's complicated. What the fuck are we going to do?
Yeah, it is complicated, but I would tell people, again, if you get back to the basics of monitoring your body weight consistently, which is I have to be careful about this because there are some people where monitoring their body weight consistently ends up being like really anxiety provoking for them.
Disordered eating and stuff.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So that's, I try to be sensitive to that, but it is a very consistent thing in the literature that people who lose weight and keep it off tend to monitor their body weight pretty regularly. And it's a self-correcting thing, right? Like if you're keeping a budget very regularly and you see, oh man, I spent, $5,000 more this month, what happens? You correct, right? And so I would use that more of, instead of the accounting variation, I would say, well, sometimes your business has unexpected expenses, right? Or sometimes you have less expenses, right? And so those are going to fluctuate and can be hard to anticipate, right? And so what we're looking for overall is, okay, let's look back at, I think a lot of businesses operate in quarters, right? Mm-hmm. Let's look at this quarter. Okay, on average, here's our month over month what we're profiting, right? Okay, well, we can start to budget based on these sorts of things and expectations. We'll try to project out a little bit. I kind of look at that with people. I'm like, all right, well, how much weight did you lose on average, like over the past month? Okay, how much were you eating? Okay, you lost 6 pounds over the last month. You're definitely in a calorie deficit, right? It's working. Keep going. Maybe you're eating 2,000 calories. Maybe you're eating 2,300 calories. Who cares? It's working, right? Now, what happens is eventually once you plateau, again, maybe you're eating 2,000, maybe you're eating 2,300. Doesn't matter. Whichever it is, if you've plateaued, it means you have to reestablish the deficit. So you either have to reduce your calories or you have to increase your activity or a combination of both, those sorts of things.